Hello fellow Clashers, welcome to episode 3 of Challenge Winning Decks. Today we're featuring a deck made by noobiemaster in Son of a Witch, and this deck is just so strong and fun. Before we get to that, I wanted to thank you guys so much for your wonderful support in helping me build up this channel and telling your friends and family. We have been growing so much recently, more than I have ever seen. Since the last video, we've gone up 150 subscribers, and for a brand new YouTuber like myself, that is fantastic. So thank you so much. Now when it comes to this deck, we have 2 legendaries and 2 epic cards in here, which makes it strong, but I understand that some of you might not have those leveled up or even have one of those legendaries. So I did want to let you know that if you do not have a strong P.E.K.K.A, you can definitely replace him for the giant or the giant skeleton, maybe even the golem or the royal giant, and have some success with that. Now, as far as the miner goes, he's a really versatile card that has a lot of different uses, which makes him difficult to replace in many different decks. That being said, his primary purpose in this deck is to take care of defending ranged troops, like the musketeer or the princess or even the ice wizard. So in this deck, he actually is able to be replaced by either the fireball or poison, or maybe even the log if you have that. When it comes to the witch, the reason why I have the witch in this deck is because of how it is helpful in making sure that your opponent cannot stop your P.E.K.K.A even if they have an Inferno Tower. Because of that, if you're wanting to replace her, you can do that with either the Tombstone and maybe even the Furnace, although that's not going to help as much against the Inferno Tower. When it comes to the Ice Wizard is a very tanky troop, very strong on defense, and slows down defending troops. Because of that, probably the best alternative to use for him is the Wizard, followed by the Ice Spirit, and then maybe the Baby Dragon, or finally the Princess. Now when it comes to our other cards in this deck, you can see that they just make such a strong combination. Even after our P.E.K.K.A had fallen, they were easily able to clear that tower, and now our opponent just cannot stop it because of how strong this push is. The goal is to try to get that. Now when you're playing, the idea behind this deck is to make sure that you can use your tower's health as a resource, in that you spend very little elixir defending, maybe with your Ice Wizard or your Miner, and if you need to, your Mini P.E.K.K.A or your Musketeer, but you want to allow your opponent to take some damage, or to get some damage onto your towers, so that you don't have to spend a ton of elixir in defending. You're going to want to do this especially when you're facing against Hog Cycle decks, because during the one-time elixir, then Hog Cycle decks are going to have a little bit of an advantage over you, but you'll be able to get them very well in 2 times elixir, so don't worry about that a whole bunch. Just make sure that you're using your tower's health as a resource and practice doing that. If you're able to do that, you'll be able to easily shut down Hog Cycle decks, and like you saw in my last match, 3-star them with kind of a little effort if you set it all up correctly. Now, giant poison decks are really tough for this deck to handle because of how good poison is at clearing all of your P.E.K.K.A's supporting troops. I decided to show you that in this replay, and there's also the challenge winning match that noobiemaster had also included a poison, so you can see 2 examples on how to do that. Now, when it comes to facing against somebody with poison, it is all about troop placement. So when you know that your opponent has poison ready, try to make sure that your troops are very spread apart. As you can tell right here, how I have the Mini P.E.K.K.A and that Ice Wizard and that Musketeer all spread apart. Now they were still able to use that in that poison to clear my troops pretty well, but spreading them apart definitely helped in doing that. When you're facing against opponents that have chip damage decks, like the Miner Cycle decks or things like that, those decks can be a little difficult to handle, but as long as you can ignore the Miner and focus on the troops coming down the lane and use your tower's health as a resource, then you'll be able to very easily defend against those types of decks. So just be careful with how you do that. If they are able to take a tower in the one-time elixir, and you don't have the option of putting down your P.E.K.K.A down, you can do a little mini P.E.K.K.A push, and that can work out really well. You'll see right there my troop placement. You'll want to do something along the lines of that when they have their poison up, so that your supporting troops don't get wiped up too easily. When it comes to defending against other decks, honestly, this deck doesn't have much of a difficult time facing them as long as you follow the advice that I talked about earlier. And so just make sure that you pay attention and practice with this deck. It does take skill, but if you get that down, then you will be unstoppable. Now, when it comes to offense, this deck is so strong because of the sheer force that your P.E.K.K.A comes up with, along with 3 ranged supporting troops and your miner that can be used to clear musketeers or princesses anywhere on the map. Now, you're going to want to try to wait for the right time, because if you do it too early, then you'll not be able to take your opponent off guard with your P.E.K.K.A. And if you wait too late, your opponent might be able to distract your P.E.K.K.A long enough that your P.E.K.K.A won't be able to make it onto, make it to the tower. Now, as far as popular defenses, when you're trying to take an opponent down, popular defenses, it will include the minion horde, which you will need either the witch or 2 of either the witch, ice wizard, or zap. The fireball or the rocket's really popular. Make sure that if your opponent has fireball or rocket, that you're not placing your troops in a big bunch like mine are right now, but rather in a line. I found that the best line for situations like that is witch in front, with your ice wizard in the middle and your musketeer in the back. Doing it like that is a really powerful combo. When you're facing somebody with the Valkyrie, you'll also want to try and do that. However, sometimes it's even better to, when you know you have when your opponent has the Valkyrie, to drop your mini P.E.K.K.A near the bridge and your ice wizard kind of closely behind. Now that's 7 elixir to take down a 4 elixir troop, but they should have plenty of health points left over afterwards. Here we're watching the winning replay by noobiemaster. I'm going to let him do his work while I explain how to use the rest of this deck. Now, when you're facing somebody that uses the Princess, Ice Wizard, or Musketeer to try and slow down or take out your P.E.K.K.A as she makes her way to the tower, what you can do is use your miner to try and take them out. You'll want to place the miner directly behind them so that you don't risk resetting their target onto him, which you don't always want to do. One difficult matchup is the Inferno Tower. Now, when you're using the Inferno Tower, one of the best things that you can do is make sure that you have the Witch behind the P.E.K.K.A and having built up a big enough army of little skeletons so that they can distract the Inferno Tower. If you're not able to get the Witch up in time, then you can do a miner zap combination where you drop the miner right up next to the Inferno Tower and then zap it so that the Inferno Tower targets the miner instead. That can take a little bit of skill to learn how to do, but if you can pull that off, that's a great move to use. When your opponent is defending against your pushes using poison, that can be a little bit difficult, but one of my favorite things to do is to drop the Musketeer in the middle of the map right next to the river so she can help clearing defending troops without walking into the poison. By placing your other troops like the Ice Wizard or the Witch on the opposite side of the bridge, you can make it difficult for them to make a good poison placement. There was one match when I was facing somebody with poison that I won simply because they were using poison on all my supporting troops, and I dropped a miner to the other tower and also dropped the mini P.E.K.K.A down the lane, and they didn't have the elixir to be able to stop it in time, and I won because of that. So that's something you can definitely try doing, although that doesn't always work out. If you're facing somebody with the guards, one of the best things that you can do is use the Ice Wizard and the Witch together. If you don't have both of them, you can also use the Zap on the guards. Now, if you're like me, you're going to be way excited to try this deck out and go and use it. If you do, be patient. The first few matches that I used this deck on, I completely lost, fell flat on my face. It was awful. Just practice and get better with it, and you will be able to make a completely unstoppable force. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe and the like button. This is KairosTime ticking by, and we will see you in the arena.